of the most valuable pieces of equipment that I actually own, other than my Betamax machines, has to be this Hitachi. It's a VT39EM. What makes this machine completely unique is it's a multi-system. So this machine can play back tapes recorded in NTSC, PAL, MESCAM, or Middle East CCAM and CCAM. This machine is only used when I have a tape to transfer and it sits idle the rest of the time. So I went to use it today, and here's what it's doing. It just shuts down. Let's get a look at the top of this beast. This is one of the best VCRs ever made by Hitachi. It was also sold under the RCA brand. This one just happened to be a multi-system machine. There were millions of these machines sold. One of the best VCRs that's ever been made is this design from any company. As far as reliability goes, this is one of the best. Now, the problem on this is most certainly going to be a belt, because other than the odd capstan motor that goes bad, and the capstan motor on this one it's getting pretty worn. It gets pretty loud, the bearings squeal pretty good when it's running, but I'm not really able to do much about that until I can find another machine like this that I can actually rob a capstan motor out of. It's still functional, and again, it really does not get many hours on it. This machine is so seldom used. I might use this machine a couple times a year, and then it just sits unplugged, not powered up, in a nice warm storage facility, just waiting for the next time that I need it. I don't want to put a lot of hours up on this thing because getting parts for it is going to be pretty difficult. It has the good old idler tire down here. This was a common failure on these machines. How you can tell if you've got a new or an old style is the color of it. The blue one was the better one. As you can see, this one here, the tire is got a bunch of cracks on it, but you know what? It's still in good enough shape that it will actually drive the tape spools. So that's not the problem. I'm sure that the tire is probably still available for this machine because there were so many of these things made, but that's not my problem here, because as you'll see, if I put it into fast forward or rewind, it works there. Just going into play, it's going to load up, and it's not going to complete the loading cycle. The loading motor is now slipping, and then it's going to stop. So we have to change the loading belt on it. The loading belt's on the bottom, but I pulled the top off it so you can see the operation of this thing. To get at the loading belt, we actually have to flip it on its side and open it up from the bottom. I just about said goodbye to my camera when I went to turn this machine over. The power cord from it caught the leg of my tripod and just about flipped my tripod over. So to access the bottom of these machines, just remove the screws that hold the base plate on. Screws removed, the bottom cover will just lift off and reveal a circuit board, which we also have to take out of the way. There's tons of wires on these things. These did use these composite ICs, which are, on Panasonics, these were problematic. I haven't had any of them fail on Hitachi made machines. Again, we've got black screws that are marked with arrows that have to come out on the board. So there's a couple of them here. Okay, we also have to lift out these wire clips just to give us some slack so that we can swing the board out of the way. And we'll have to pull the front faceplate forward a bit. So that's done just by releasing the catches on the front here. We don't need to take it right off, but we do need to give enough clearance that we can lift the board up and swing it out. So that should be enough. And then we can just lift up the board, release the little plastic catches on either side of the board here, There's another one over here. And take the remote assembly out, and the board will just lift out of the way to reveal a nice belt-driven machine. The belts that normally fail on this, well, there's a capstan belt. We're still good on that one. Our drive belt is good. This particular unit here has the plastic bearing. Some of them it was metal against metal, so it would actually squeak, but this one's actually got the plastic insert on it. The belts that are going to be slipping on these are the two loading belts over here. Those are the ones that are going to be, I think, the ones causing me problems. Either that or the mode switch, which is over here, is dirty. But we can fire this thing up right now and just see what's going on. If I turn it on, turn on the power and load up my tape. We'll see which belt's slipping. Yeah, it's this one here. That's turning, this is not. Now we're in play mode. This belt is weak. So let me see if I can find another one. You can see it. You can see it bowing up there. So let me see if I can find another one of those belts. Very easy to take the belt off. To change this other one, you actually have to remove this screw here that holds the motor in and lift the motor out. But for this other belt, we just loop it off the back side of the pulley and then just loop it around and out like that. It's I think it's a 3.4 SBM 3.4, I believe. The two belts that were used on this was 3.4 and 3.2. Hopefully I've got one that's going to fit this. I do have one that's a little smaller. It's not as thick. It's a thinner belt, but you know what? It's smaller, so it may be tight enough. As I say, it's not really all that critical, just as long as it's got enough tension to spin this thing to thread up the tape. That's really all that matters. So let's try it now and see if it will turn on the power, see if it will complete the loading cycle. Here we go. And that's it. That's all we have to do on that one. Just replace that belt. And now this machine is functional. You can tell it's been sitting a while without being used because you can see the flat spot on the belt where the belt's been parked for a period of time there. Lubrication points that are important on this machine. You've got a bearing here which should be lubricated, and I might just do that now because it looks like it might be a little bit dry. A bearing here that needs to be lubricated. Those ones you just put a little bit of regular electric motor oil on those will do. So let's do that now because they haven't gummed up. If they were to gum up, I'd have to pull the whole clutch. That howling sound is actually the bearing on my capstan motor, which is starting to go. So if we pull the little cut washer off here, come on, come out. There we go. So now I've got the cut washer off. I'm just going to put a drop of oil, just good old electric motor oil, just one little drop is all that's needed. And that will, we'll just lift it up a bit here, just to make sure that it goes down into the bearing, and then we can put the cut washer back on. And we'll do the same for this other one. You don't need much oil. We're saying too much oil is worse than not enough is most certainly true. If you have too much oil, the oil will spray off from the parts spinning and it'll get all over your belts, and then you're going to have slipping belts, especially if it were to get onto the edge of this pulley. It's going to land on the loading drive. The worm gear over here, it's a good idea to lubricate that with, just use a good old molly coat on that. That's always a good idea to lubricate this one if it's being serviced for any reason. Just put a little bit of moly coat on there and just turn. And now we can put this machine back together. Make sure my power is off. Replace the 2 screws. I don't really need to put this remote sensor back in place because I don't have a remote control for the unit, but what the heck, we'll just stick it back in there anyway. Redress the wires. Bottom plate is back on. That probably won't hurt to clean the heads on this thing, but I doubt that I'm going to bother because it wasn't long ago that it was cleaned. I think this machine probably has had, oh, maybe 2 hours of use on it since the last time it was cleaned. So the only reason I say it might benefit from a cleaning is because the tapes that go through this thing here are typically pretty old. They're from foreign countries, and typically what I would find is most people that were sending tapes, I used to do a lot of conversions, like tons of it, and I didn't just use this machine. I had an AGW1 Panasonic for the longest time, but being a Panasonic, they did not make the greatest VCRs in the world. They used a lot of crappy capacitors in them that had a lot of problems. And my AGW1 doesn't run, but this one does, and this one's older. My AGW1 would convert. This one actually won't convert the tape. This will just play it in whatever the native format is. So there's my tape playing. Let's go to my tracking control. This has got manual tracking, so I just have to adjust the tracking, and as you can see, it's playing perfect. So, stop it, eject it, turn it off. As I was saying, my AGW1, that machine had the standards converter built in. So you could give it any signal. You could give it NTSC and it would record a tape in PAL. You could, or CCAM, or Middle East CCAM. You could give it any format of signal, it didn't care, and it would convert everything over and record in whatever format you wanted it recorded in. Very expensive machine. I think I paid probably $5,000 for the machine when I bought it. I bought it in the States. I bought it at a time when the Canadian dollar was in the tank, and I think it was 3,500 US, which worked out to about 5,000 Canadian. But that was back at a point in time when we were getting $30 per hour to transfer tapes because nobody did it. Nobody had machines to convert. And those who had them, like myself, paid a ton of money for it. This machine I got for free. And I let it just sit. I didn't do anything with it. It sat for years and years and years. This one doesn't actually convert anything. It just plays. It will play the tape as a PAL format tape. But I do have a standards converter. It actually is a better standards converter than the standards converter that was built into the AGW1. So what I used to do was I used to take the PAL signal or the CCAM signal from my AGW1, run it through my outboard standards converter, and then put it into a DVD recorder or an NTSC machine. And that's what I do with this. I just take the PAL signal out from it, run it into my standards converter, and take the output from that and put it into my DVD recorder. And I actually get very good quality. This thing here is at least 30 years old, this machine. Still going strong. These old Hitachi made machines, they just never break down. It's one of the, well, there's a few, the Mitsubishi's had a few very good machines too, but I think that as far as construction quality of VCRs go, these Hitachi made machines are probably the best VHS machines you are going to find anywhere in terms of reliability. They are bulletproof. The only thing that ever really goes wrong on these machines is a belt will wear out from time to time and has to be replaced. And occasionally we'll get a capstan motor. And again, this one works. It works fine. It's just that it howls on rewind. So one day it'll eventually die and I'll have to try and find one. But for the few hours this thing gets, it's served me very well. Hope you enjoyed this look at this Hitachi VT39 EM Multi System VHS VCR. We'll catch you in the next one.